Everyone, thank you for tuning in for another episode of Paranormally Beyond Disclosure. We are a weekly podcast dedicated to sincere, in-depth investigations into the paranormal, supernatural, and the metaphysical, with a special focus on the UFO topic. We take a sincere, analytical approach, thoroughly evaluating each case and its implications. Our discussions go beyond the surface as we engage with researchers, investigators, and experiencers to explore the deeper layers of their testimonies. We strive for high-resolution analysis, carefully examining evidence, patterns, and perspectives that challenge conventional thinking. If you're looking for a podcast that seeks deeper understanding, you're in the right place. Please be sure to like and subscribe and follow to receive notifications when new content is made available. You can also visit us at www.paranormallypodcast.com for more content and information, including all our social links. Thank you again for watching or listening, and we hope to see you on the next episode of Paranormally Beyond Disclosure.
Okay, everyone, welcome to the show. Tonight we have on Venus Saffaric. Am I pronouncing that right? Is it Saffaric?
I say Saffaric, but I really don't mind how you pronounce it.
Okay.
Saffaric.
Why don't you briefly describe yourself, and then we'll quickly jump into some of your early experiences.
Okay. Okay. It's a little bit difficult to say because I do a lot of different things, but I do consider myself an eclectic practitioner. My name is Venus, of course. I have a business, I guess, called Secret Frequencies, and I do things like readings, manifestations, and readings, manifestations, Reiki, and sound healing. So I do all things like that.
What do you mean by manifestations?
So, so I would say like spell work. I do consider it spell work sometimes, but I think sometimes that can have like a negative connotation to it, and people think that maybe it's like dark magic or something like that. So I just kind of say manifestations sometimes. But yeah, so just kind of helping people to manifest, achieve things, anything that we can be in alignment with in this lifetime, because I believe that some of us get on a kind of lower vibration, and we do have the ability and potential to get up to a higher life path, higher vibration, and sometimes people need a little bit of help with that, and I think that's probably linked to some things that you want to talk about, like attachments and things like that, because when people are in low energy and they're being targeted or they have attachments, they're not really in alignment with that higher path that they could be on. So although, people might not believe in magic as such, but there is definitely a potential and possibility to attain your higher life path,
And so I know we're going to get into your experiences, but so you think spells can actually alter your vibration, that there's some influence that they can have on your vibrational sort of spiritual status? I've always thought your vibrational status was kind of like almost tantamount to your level of spiritual development or evolution. But you think that spells can actually, or at least aid you in raising your vibration?
Because I mean, it depends, because I'm an eclectic practitioner, so the things that I incorporate into my spell work, I work with people, so they would also usually be given a very simple but still some practice that they can do on their end, which works with me and works with what I'm doing with them. And I work very closely with people, so like if someone says, oh, I want to like manifest X, this thing, I won't just be like, okay, I will do a manifestation for that for you. I'll check the energy, and a lot of the time someone's trying to attain a higher path materially, they want to have a good job, or they want to achieve things in life like that. Often there can be blocks in the root chakra, or attachments in the root chakra, or any negative cords in the root chakra, anything like that. So sometimes it's things like that they need work on. If someone is having difficulties with like relationships constantly, maybe they're in like a cycle, repeating the same patterns within relationships, whether that's past intimate relationships, or just friendships and things like that. It can be like issues in the heart or the throat or anything like that. So I think that this is why I do tend to say my main things that I do is cleansing, because and removals of dark energy or entities or anything like that, because that a lot of the time that is what keeps people in a low vibration. And I'm not, it's difficult because it's so complex and there's so many layers to us and how we work in this I guess, because there can be things that are not your fault, like if you're targeted, if you pick up an attachment from something else, but then there can be things that are people's fault as well, so I do work with people who they have gotten themselves into a negative situation, maybe an addiction or something like that, and then that causes an attachment. We can create the issues ourselves as well. But yeah, I think it's all about removing and working on whatever that negative thing is, and then working on the manifesting, which would be just getting to that higher path. Because I do think most people have a higher path that they can attain if they, if you really focus on it and really, think about the connection between the body and spirit. Because it's like I said with addiction, you might think that because you have an addiction, that's just like a physical thing, or it can have or come with or attract attachments. So then you have to work on repairing the body and detoxing the body, but also the spiritual side as well. And of course, the mind, because it can affect your mental health. So everything is all linked together like that. Which is why, yeah, I do believe in manifesting. I do believe that it can raise your vibration, but I think it's very complex and there's a lot of things to look into with it. I don't think it's as simple as I just cast a spell for you and then everything's perfect. So you do have to understand. I do work very, very closely with people, and I feel very grateful because a lot of people are so open and trusting to me, and have really opened up to me and allowed me to help them on that path. Because that's part of it as well. Some people, they wouldn't be so open and trusting with you to work on the energy like that. So yeah, it's also a blessing for me to be a positive part of people's journey and have that calling in life as well.
Since we've opened this up so much and you've just said so many things that I kind of want to comment on, let's postpone talking about your experiences. We'll pick that up. Let's go into entity attachments, actually. And maybe let's start out with your own experiences with entity attachments, and then we'll get back into kind of the nitty gritty of the mechanics and things like that, and methods of removal. And we can talk about, all of it if you want to. So yeah, I think you had some notable attachments, and I think you regarded them as teaching you something, if I'm not wrong, in some kind of way, or they taught you, I think, about how to remove them, if I'm getting that right. Why don't you go into those attachments and what happened with that? And
yes, so a lot of attachments, what I realized is a lot of attachments happen in teenage years, because people they go through a lot through those experience like hormonal changes and things like that, which does affect the energy and does affect people's behavior and all of these things. And I had an attachment, but I didn't know, so I didn't really realize what it was. I had a sleep paralysis experience, and I had the what they refer to it in, I suppose astral projection kind of realm as like old hag syndrome, and that's when you have the entity attachment on the throat chakra. And because I didn't realize for so long that I had that attachment, because I didn't really know what it was, so I had the sleep paralysis experience. I saw the being, I felt it. I was paralyzed, but I didn't really understand what sleep paralysis was. I didn't understand what astral projection was or anything like that. And astral projection does come into it, and I'll explain that as well, just in case people don't know why I'm linking these two things together.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I had that attachment, and I didn't do anything about it at the time because I didn't understand it, and I was a teenager.
How did you know for sure it was an attachment based on the sleep paralysis experience? Or was it just your intuition that this was an attachment? Or I wouldn't automatically, seeing a being necessarily think, that it's attached to me, or what made you feel that it was an attachment?
So as I headed on more onto the spiritual journey in the future, I get a lot of information through meditation or connecting with guides and things like that, and that is where I eventually, and I do feel like a lot of it is intuitive as well. Like maybe you could say higher self. I don't really mind what people refer to it as. Like, it wasn't my higher self, my guides, God, source energy. I don't really mind the terminology that people wanted to use, but I came to the understanding. Maybe you might call it download, or whatever terminology people want to use in whatever realm and sphere that they're in, community they're in. But yeah, I headed down the path of. So, well, I'll just explain first why I'm linking astral projection to sleep paralysis, because purposefully getting yourself into the state of sleep paralysis is exit point, like an easy exit point for astral projection. So when you purposefully make your body go to sleep but your mind stay awake, that's a very easy way to astral project. So that's why I'm linking those two things, just in case, I know not everyone who watches will be super versed in astral projection. But eventually I was always an avid lucid dreamer as a child, and had premonition dreams very, very often. And because eventually when I spoke to enough people about it, I realized that lucid dreaming isn't normal and not everybody does it. It did really make me kind of research it a little bit, and like, why would it happen to me, or what can you do with it, And that's what led me into like trying to learn and wanting to learn astral projection. And it's the astral projection side of things that opens me up to entities the most and to understanding them the most.
Is that a possible jumping off point to astral travel if you're in a dream and you're lucid? Is there a way to go from there? I suppose there is, I'm sure,
yes. So what I would do, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. So what I would do, I did this a few times. So I would be in a lucid dream, and I would think, okay, I want to astral project, and I don't know, I don't know why this was like the kind of visual in my head that I was like giving myself, but I would go to or create, because I was in a lucid dream, a gallery, an art gallery, and I would say, when I jump through this painting, I will astral project, and I would jump through the painting, and then I would be above my body. So I would shift from the dream to astral projection. But I think that personally, that was just kind of the way that my mind rationalized it or wanted to visualize it. I'm sure there's tons of ways that you can do it.
So when you lucid dream, you can. So I can't do that when I lucid dream. I can basically fly if I want to. I don't seem to be able to, no matter what I do in lucid dreams, although I don't have a lot of lucid dreams, manipulate my environment very much. Now you're able to, and that's what you were talking about. You created the painting and everything, and you could suddenly sort of manifest structures and contents within your dream.
Yeah, so the base level of lucid dreaming is just knowing that you're dreaming. Like if you know that you're in a dream when you're in a dream, you're lucid dreaming. But the purpose of why do people want to do that? Why is it desirable? Why do we want to achieve that? I do a whole talk on lucid dreaming actually. It is one thing that I do. Because so this I don't know if I don't know how much I'm going off on a tangent here, but there's a
Yes.
study
Mhm.
that was done, and it was basically two groups of people, and one of them would do like X amount of time, let's say it was 2 weeks, basketball. So they would practice basketball for so long per day for these every 2 weeks, and the other group would just imagine themselves doing it and wouldn't actually do it. And when they tested them at the end, in comparison to testing them before they started the test, that makes sense. They both groups had improved pretty much the same. So it shows how our brain visualizing doing something can be just as powerful as practicing it. And this is
Hmm.
where lucid dreaming gets really interesting because, a lot of people like they just want to fly in a dream, or they just want to I don't know, create the world of their own, which is great, if you want to do that. But lucid dreaming is so much more. It can be used for so much more. You can, let's say you were. This is one example because I can't remember the actual name of the person, but there was someone who did this, a tennis player, and they would practice tennis in their lucid dreams, and get better at it in reality.
Hmm.
So we think that, well, some people think it's like, oh yeah, would love to have the experience to like fly or something, but there's actually a lot that you can do with it.
That's
So
really
I
interesting. You would
mhm.
think that, just playing tennis in the physical reality would benefit you more actually playing tennis than, doing it in the astral, and what do you think
Well,
is the
yeah, but
mechanism there as to why is it so beneficial? I mean, you're not, at least, I don't know, the way my dreams are. I mean, the physics just definitely feel different. You move different. Especially when you're lucid and you're more aware, and you kind of notice like, that you're not physical. And it just seems kind of, sometimes to me anyway, kind of sluggish. Um, I don't know if that's your experience at all, or
well,
how.
it's definitely a practice. It's 100% a practice. Like, it's like anything. You really do have to practice it. Basically, is all I can say. But the reason why it's beneficial, like you're saying, like just play tennis. In reality, why not just do that? Because essentially, you have 8 hours a night that you're not doing anything with. So it's
Mm.
like if you're a competitive person, or you're someone who really wants to achieve a certain thing, why waste those 8 hours? It's an extra 8 hours.
Mm. That's really interesting you say that. I was actually just listening, and it almost feels kind of synchronistic. I was listening to an evolutionary biologist, who was not, metaphysical or spiritual at all.
Yeah.
And that was his best guess as to the evolutionary, purpose of dreaming. You have all this extra sort of time, and that can essentially use to practice, activities that you do in life, and he really thought that there was a lot of science, that uh, backed that up as to why we dream. Um,
Yeah. I mean, they say, or a lot of people say that, we don't know why we dream, but I think there's plenty of benefits to dreaming and plenty of reasons why we do it. And in ancient Tibetan practices, they would call it dream yoga, and they would try to achieve like higher states of consciousness. And a lot of people in certain Tibetan or Buddhist as well, I think, practices of what they call it, dream yoga. They would just try to meditate. So if you're aware that you're dreaming, it's like, I'm going to go into like a deeper state of meditation, and maybe
yeah.
some answers come, or maybe you connect with source energy, or whatever comes through.
Yeah, I've heard some interesting things happen if you can manage, and you become lucid and you can think to meditate. There's some interesting things that happen. Actually, just for the first time, was able to do that in a lucid dream not that long, like within the last month. I ordinarily never think of it, because you're just not like in your normal mode of consciousness, like I just like you're partially there, but you're just not thinking straight, like what should I do? I'm thinking like
But
I
you
want to fly.
can though, you can.
Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
get to that point with practice. You can, because I was like that. I was in a dream when I was first really trying, because I was always able to do it, but it's like you say, like sometimes things were different and the physics was different and things like that. So
Yeah.
yeah, if that's the case, then maybe I'm practicing guitar and it's a dream guitar. It's nothing like a real guitar, so the chords are different, and maybe it doesn't help in real life. But um, one of the dreams I had, it was like I was I just got stuck because I knew that I could lucid dream. I knew that I could do anything I wanted, but I had like indecision and like mind block, a very Libra thing of being indecisive,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
everything just started to like disappear around me, and I was just in a like blank white space. And I think that is the thing with a lot of people is um knowing exactly what they want to do with it. It's like I just want this experience, but I didn't really know what to do with it. But yeah, if you just practice, it really does um evolve. Honestly,
Yeah. So you become more conscious, I think, just like in meditation. I almost feel like it's the same mechanism. Like when you're practicing meditating, you're kind of just practicing being conscious, and not lost in thought all the time. You're practicing recognizing thought, sneaking up on you and possessing you. And then by doing so, you're getting better at just being conscious, just being aware, and not, being overtaken by thoughts and feelings. I think it's probably the same mechanism, if you just practice awareness, within a dream, you're kind of,
yeah,
developing that in the same manner.
that's exactly
So
it.
I have a question. So, and this has always been the case, I think almost always, maybe except for once, and with my own lucid dreaming. As soon as I become lucid in a dream, it's like I have 10 seconds, or if that, before I black out, before the reality, the dream world dissolves, and I black out and then lose consciousness, and then probably emerge into another dream. And forget, that I'm dreaming. And I always thought for the longest time that that was just kind of how it is, and maybe you can, get better at that. But some people just seem to naturally never have that problem. I always have that problem, and
It's too much
what I think it
norepinephrine.
is, what I think, just to finish this thought, and then you can tell me what you think.
Sorry.
What I think it is that once I become lucid, I start to come into my normal brainwave state, in the waking state. I think I start to come out of delta, or wherever I'm at, uh, and maybe into, alpha or beta. And I think that's just kind of maybe why, if all of a sudden you feel like you're awake, and you're lucid, and you start to have your day-to-day thoughts, I think it kind of precipitates, your normal sort of mode of consciousness, your normal brainwave state, that you normally operate at. And I think possibly that's the mechanism why, everything kind of fades away, because like becoming lucid kind of wakes me up. It's like it has the byproduct of kind of starting to wake my mind up. And I can't seem to, the only thing that's is in one dream that seemed to kind of prevent that a little bit was like I just decided to, like, instead of like going trying to do anything or like fly or like explore, which is like always my impulse, like because I only ever have like 10 seconds to do anything. Like I just immediately want to like use that 10 seconds to, like, I don't know, like explore, the terrain, and, um, But on one occasion, I decided to just not do anything at all and just like stop and close my eyes. And it was like I just remained lucid, for a much longer stretch, but not permanently. Like eventually, I was swept away again and lost it. But that was the only thing that kind of lengthened it in a meaningful way. What are your thoughts about that? Do you talk to people who have lucid dreams and have a similar problem like that? Do you ever have that problem yourself, or?
Yeah, so this is something I go quite in depth into in my lucid dream talk, because it's so you're talking about brainwaves, which like, yeah, you could be absolutely correct on that. But my angle of how I look at it is neurotransmitters. So when you need to have this balance of acetylcholine and norepinephrine, because if you have too much norepinephrine, that's what usually happens to people. But it's like excitement, or well, yeah, I would say like it gives excitement, or some kind of like, oh, I'm doing it, I'm lucid dreaming, and that's what wakes you up. And maybe it's linked to brainwaves. I'm not discounting what you're saying. It very well could link. But my talk is a lot about I do things like reality checks, and different techniques like wake back to bed, or like different techniques that people might share very commonly online. But I go a bit deeper into it with the neurotransmitters that are involved in dreaming and memory and all of these things, and supplements and herbs that you can take that will help you with that. And so it sounds like I'm pretty sure it's norepinephrine, so you're getting too much of that, so you're waking yourself up. Whereas if you balance that level a little bit, so you would probably need something that was a little bit more relaxing, whereas some people need something that gives them a little bit more of that, because it's having that right balance between awareness, but you still want to be asleep. So it's like that right level between being having that energy, that level of energy or awareness, but also still having that relaxed state. So I think very well it could link to brainwaves like you're talking about. But to be more how can I say, more like not technical, but more practical. To be more practical, I talk about like supplements, and so if people are actually present when I do a talk, they might say that like, oh, I had this issue where I just keep waking up through it. And I might say, if you try like valerian, which doesn't work for me because I don't need to go into like a deeper level. But it can work for some people, because if they're constantly going a bit too high and waking themselves up, they might just need something that relaxes them a little bit more. I mean, even as simple as like a chamomile tea, it could be something that simple. It doesn't
something as simple as what? What was it that you said?
A chamomile tea.
Oh, okay.
It has compound in it called
I
can't remember how to pronounce it. Yes.
Apigenin, or I don't pronounce either, but it's spelled like something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So things like that, something as simple as that can just help to level you out if you're already kind of there. If you're not already there, there's things I recommend that are a little bit easier, a little bit more like a cheat to lucid dreaming, but pretty good. So like galantamine is probably the best thing you can get, because the main thing you need for lucid dreaming is acetylcholine. So that is the neurotransmitter that is linked to memory, learning, and dreaming. And this is another reason why I was saying, we do know the reason why we dream, because when we dream, we consolidate all of our memories from the day, and that's why as people get older and they don't dream as much, and the memory gets worse. So actually, galantamine is very commonly prescribed as a treatment for some Alzheimer's. Treatment. Because it's really good for the acetylcholine, which is what's being lost when people lose their memory. And it's linked to dreaming as well. So yeah, so I go really into like the very practical things that we can use to help
Yeah.
us with lucid
That's
dreaming.
interesting. Yeah, I had no idea that there was like as practical a solution as that. And I thought that because my normal waking state is so kind of, tumultuous, in terms of my thoughts and monkey mind, etc., that when I start to go into that, like um, it's just because I start to go into my normal mode of consciousness and thoughts start to intrude and that starts to kind of, I think, bring me out of that brainwave state. And I thought the only thing you could maybe do is really practice meditating and trying to, keep yourself, in lower brainwave states and sustain them. But that's interesting. And now that I'm not sure that word that you said that started with a G that you can take, is that a prescription medication?
It's
Or
not. It's
okay.
not a prescription medication, although it can be used as treatment. I have bought it from a health food store before, but it's pretty hard to get hold of here. Sorry, well, I think here I'm in America right now. It's pretty hard to get hold of in the UK, but I do believe it's easier for you guys. I think it's a little bit more common here. I don't think it's super common anywhere, but I think it's a little bit more common here. But yeah, it's not prescription. You can get it like not on prescription. You can get it off eBay. You can get it on eBay. But yeah, galantamine.
I think there's a lot of other things too that you can take to boost acetylcholine, like alpha GPC and things like that. There's like I think 3 different things because I know that a lot of nootropics have things in them that boost acetylcholine because acetylcholine is kind of like, if you boost your levels of that, that kind of sharpens your thinking. It seems to have that effect anyway.
Yeah.
So I think there's a number of other things that actually enhance that. But anyway, let's get back into.
I totally agree with you, though. I will say, I totally agree with you that you can do it through meditation, maybe even frequencies and things like that as well. I don't think that it's only herbs and supplements that help, but I just think that practically for a lot of people that can be a bit easier.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. Let's go back into entity attachments.
Okay.
So let's start with like the deeper dimension of it. Like I suppose there's probably a range of different reasons, why non-physical units of consciousness attach themselves to you. And it's probably not all the same thing, do you think that, but in general, do you think that these things are attaching themselves to us? And do you think that they're lower vibrational or do you think that they're mid vibrational? Sometimes I think that, I know I'm kind of throwing out a lot of ones, that a lot of these entities that interfere with us aren't really necessarily low vibrational demonic entities, but I think there's a kind of a whole range of more mid-range is what I normally refer to them at, entities that may have just their own kind of selfish reasons why they might want to attach themselves to someone's energy field. I've heard things like sometimes they want to experience, things that you experience, and maybe even substances, and things like that, and are self-interested or doing it for reasons of self-interest. But I've always felt that in my own case, and perhaps in the case of many other people, that there is some more organization going on with entity attachments. Like they are there for a reason, like they're there for a more significant objective other than just their own self-interest and, experiencing things. They're there to maybe keep you locked in a certain vibrational state to impede your evolution, maybe because they're being directed to potentially. I've always, ventured the speculation that they're in league with whatever, is behind the control system and, the forces that are manipulating humanity. What is your thoughts on yeah, the motives and just the deeper reasons why that is a phenomenon.
Yeah, well, exactly. So, first of all, to kind of talk about what you first mentioned with the different vibrations that you were talking about, I do believe there's a lot of neutral jinn entities. So they are neutral, and like you say, they might just want to experience something. They might kind of, it might not be directly purposefully trying to target you as such, but you're they're wanting to experience that thing. Like you said, it could be a substance, alcohol or a substance or something like that. And they're just wanting that experience. And I do believe I've worked with many neutral spirits. Neutral, I usually would call them jinn. And with that, that's pretty easy to like. Not easy. Saying it's easy is like, I think that's a bit dismissive, but that's a lot of easier type of being to work with. So then you're going on about where the beings where it's more organized, where maybe they're controlled by someone, put there for a purpose. They're the cases where it's much more difficult to work with. It's more of a challenge, I would say. But I do agree. I agree that I think it's a very, very complex topic. And this is why at the beginning I was talking about, I have to be very, very close and trusting and open with my clients, and we have to really get to the root of things, because every situation is different. Everything is very complex. For some people it is. I have worked with neutral gin attachments where they're just in the cycle with some kind of addiction, whatever that might be. And I do work with people who are targeted as well, and it's definitely deeper. It's definitely you need a lot more protection. You need a lot more even help sometimes. Whether that's from guides or whatever that might be, because I just think you're absolutely right. Like, all I can do really is kind of confirm that, because I do think that there's entities that are sent for a purpose, controlled, whether it's by, whether it is sometimes by the powers that be, but sometimes also on smaller levels. So you can have groups of people who are just targeting people for like a different reason, whether that's black magic practitioners because they want something from a certain person. This world that we live in it's full of beauty and amazing things, but it's also full of negative people who just want to take advantage of people. And in the places where practicing dark magic and connecting with dark beings is a bit more common, or even in places where it's not common, it does happen in a lot of places. But in places where it's more common, someone could set up like a black magic, connect with entities to drag you down simply because they might want something from you, like life insurance, or see you suffer because they get jealousy from you, or they know that they're going to inherit your house. That one thing that's really horrible is a lot of the time it's families. It can actually be families doing it to each other. And this is, why I always like to start with, the world is a very beautiful place. There's many beautiful, amazing things here, but there's also still a lot of negative things to overcome, and psychopaths, So yeah, I just believe that it's very complex, and I agree with everything that you've said, because I think that there's a plethora of different reasons for why someone might be targeted, and a plethora of different ways and how they might be targeted, like dark magic, or like whether it's I suppose on like a higher level with the powers that be, because they as we know, or maybe to some people I should say as we believe, they can actually fake abductions, or maybe not fake, but you know what I mean, make us believe we were abducted by aliens when actually, in fact, it's a powers that be scenario,
Right. Lots of thoughts. One thing I want to bring up, and I don't know whether you can answer this or not, or have any insight, but I really wonder, what is their conscious experience like whilst being attached to you? Is it equivalent to my own conscious experience? Are they seeing out of my eyes, just like another sort of walk-in, that is alongside me? Or they kind of like have a foot in both worlds, maybe. It seems like they might, because it seems like they're still kind of like capacitated, and it seems like these attachments that manipulate you, they still kind of have like that kind of fourth dimensional perspective, what I call it, where they seem to kind of know maybe what's down the road sometimes, and that they don't seem to, whilst attached to you, have this complete amnesia, and are identified with the body like we are. They still seem to like understand, what's going on, and their purposes, and they haven't lost any of that. Have you ever had, I don't know, any interactions with anybody or experiences yourself that have given you insight into that? What's the nature of their experience like?
Yeah. Okay.
Attached.
So for example, like, I know I keep talking about like addictions, but that's a very common thing where people do get attachments. So with certain things, it can be very, very it's almost like they don't have too much of a consciousness, and they're just there to feed off a certain energy. So it can be very, very like low conscious, very like they probably, in terms of their experience, it's probably very it feels very almost like robotic, almost robotic's probably the wrong word. It's like the very, very low consciousness, almost like a single-celled organism in some way, where they're literally just, a single-celled organism will take one particle from the air and then transmute it or diffuse it, or whatever word you might use, and then it releases into a different, that's all they do. That's their only function. And a lot of entities like that.
And so, being that that's their only function, that's all they think about. So you're saying that they're very narrow-minded, and so they're probably not, like thinking, philosophically about anything. They're just kind of very kind of like in a kind of narrowed consciousness state is all I can think.
Yeah, it's almost like they're just drawn to it. It's almost like they're just drawn to it. It's very intuitive in a way, you could say, and it's not really. Yeah, like you're saying, they don't really think about it, but there are ones where, which probably most people who will be drawn to this kind of show will understand what I mean. But like you said, where they can fully take over someone and see through their eyes and control them, that can happen. There's so many different layers to it. Again, it's like I feel like every answer I give is like this. It's very complex and there's many layers to it, but it really is true. If you think about some of the people in power, they can be literally controlled. Have an entity that's just completely and that's what we would have called, I suppose, in the past, like possession. I don't think a lot of people use that word anymore or use that term, but it still happens. We just now we always link it to mental health. But it's, and I'm not saying it's not, because like I said earlier, the mind, body and spirit are all connected always. So that, for sometimes it's attachment, and then the how can I say, like the byproduct knock on effect of that attachment is then this person is experiencing and suffering like a mental health issue. but actually they've been possessed to begin with, you know.
Yeah.
So it's again, it's something that's very, very varied, and it varies from person to person and how they got that. And like I said, you know, sometimes it's the entity attaches and then that makes them do things, or sometimes they've chosen to do something and then the entity is attached. And I'm still not blaming people for that, because, you know, we all have a drink every now and then, you know. It's not like you shouldn't. It's not like, you know, I don't tell people like you shouldn't do anything. You should be totally, completely just, you know, only eat the fruit that falls to the ground from the trees, you know. And we're having a human experience, and it's good to have that experience and indulge in life's pleasures. But it's all about moderation, because the more that you stay in a certain vibration, the more an entity can be drawn to that, be magneted to that, you know.
Yeah. And maybe even sometimes, you know, you on some soul level want to have the attachment. And so maybe, yeah, you should drink the alcohol, or you were somehow intended to drink the alcohol, you know, from a higher perspective, and wind up with that problem to solve, maybe. So yeah, I did want to get
because
into. Oh, go ahead.
part of our life lessons, I just want to say I agree with you that can be part of the life lessons. But yeah, sorry, go on.
Yeah. But I did want to get into, well, first though, there's just so many different directions to go here with this. So the mind control dimension of this, an interesting insight that I came upon from an Australian medium who wrote the book. I don't know if you are aware of it, Psychic Self-Defense. He could go out the
No,
body. You have heard of it?
no, sorry.
Okay. He could go out the body, and he found that while out of body, he could attach to people, humans, other humans, and affect their behaviors. And you know, he had some interesting insights. He said that there was kind of restrictions as to what you could manage to do and what you couldn't manage to do. He gave the example, like if someone was a smoker, you could easily, you know, get them to light up a cigarette, you know, that was easily achieved. But if they weren't a smoker or never touched a cigarette in their life, it'd be very, very difficult, or maybe impossible, or at least from his standpoint, to be able to manipulate that kind of behavior. And so there's this mind control element of it, you know, and I think, you know, it's vibrationally linked as to what they can and can't do. I think there's a vibrational level that you can get to, which is maybe when you're starting to come very close to their own vibration, you know, where you're very much kind of aligned with their frequency, to where they can start to take full control and maybe almost full possession. But you know, outside of that, you know, it's kind of, you know, varying levels of influence, I think is how I see it. What do you think about that as far as
Well,
the mind control?
absolutely. So this is kind of links back to what I was saying in the beginning with manifesting. So when you were talking about how if the person didn't smoke and that was not a kind of set path for them, so it wouldn't be a possibility at all on the paths ahead, which is why he wouldn't have been able to make them do that. And that's similar with what I was talking about with manifesting, and why we should get ourselves to a higher level of vibration so that we can then be able to align with higher manifestations. So what you're saying there, where you know, they purposefully try to lower our vibration, and this could be, you know, we could open up a whole can of worms about, you know, poisons on foods and things like that, you know, and whatever frequencies might be playing through whatever, you know, whatever means, because the more that you lower someone's vibration, yes, the more that you can get them to then, you know, when you lower your vibration, the paths ahead of you are like lower energy paths, lower energy possibilities and opportunities. So I just, again, I like completely agree with what you're saying, because that's the whole point. That's the whole point in when they really want to take over someone and completely control them, that is what they have to do, like completely break them down to the lowest level, and then it's full control. Then it's not like that a small attachment that's kind of feeding off it, that's kind of, like I said, like almost unconscious in a way. It then leads to being able to have full possession, control the body, see through their eyes, and all of that. So yeah, I agree with that.
So yeah, like that's what I've always thought. Like as soon as they attach to you, I think the first item on the agenda is to get you to do things or consume things, which bring your vibration lower. And so to me, like that has always been, kind of, dealing with anti-attachments 101, like I'm kind of monitoring things on that level, and I think they're really kind of sneaky, and I've had some experiences which lead me to believe that some of these attachments aren't narrow-minded. They seem more intelligent than that in terms of their agenda to get you to fall into a lower vibration. I think sometimes they might even have a little bit of a long range plan, going, to get you to go here, and then when you go here, you're going to run into these people, and they're going to offer you this, and do you think that they're kind of manipulating on that level, where because I personally do think that they kind of have that fourth dimensional perspective. They're outside of our linear timeline partially. They've got a foot in that world. They kind of know, or maybe they're in communication with something that does know about, what's going to happen down the road in your timeline. And they use that to kind of figure out what they can get you to do in order to lower your vibration. I feel like in my own experience, they definitely are kind of manipulating on that level, where they're smart about it, like there's all kinds of things that you can, even if you're, consciously aware of this kind of method of theirs, where they can sort of deceive you into doing something, which ends up, and there's a lot of things, that can affect your vibration, even, just being around, someone who is, or maybe having sex with someone, and getting attachments from that person.
Mm-hmm.
So they're infiltrating your mind, with thoughts. That's another kind of piece to this. You're if you've got an attachment, or even if you don't, I mean, there's probably, technological forms of mind control, that do the same thing. But you're constantly being infiltrated. Your consciousness is with thoughts which aren't your own, and impulses also, and feelings, emotions, and a lot of this is not yours. Maybe even a scary amount of it, is not yours when it comes down to it. What do you think about that?
Well, with being outside of the timeline and being able to see, I generally believe that that is more when the entities are being used by someone, controlled by someone, because generally it would be at our level, like our base level, maybe you might say, or kind of like average level, to where we have that, or maybe higher, to where we have that ability to see the paths available. So it generally will be someone in control who, is a human, perhaps, or maybe we could go into ETs or something like that. But like I'll use the powers that be as an example, because we all know that that's going on to some degree. So they would generally, it would be them, like the human element of them, that would see the paths, and the beings would be utilized, controlled, on that lower level. Generally is how I see it. But yeah, I do think there's so many things around that can lower our vibration, and I do think that there's a lot of things that aren't. So it's influence, isn't it? It's like all these things that we can be influenced by, all these things that are constantly thrown at us. So we talk about it all the time, don't we? In these realms and these communities, the mainstream media, and celebrities, and whatever's, just watch TV and drink your beer. It's fine. Um, just let all of that sink in, and you become kind of part of like the so collective consciousness in a way, but in the negative way. How we can have a collective consciousness where we're like raising our vibration together and doing like the work, or we can have that hive mind collective consciousness where we're just allowing whatever is being put into our minds to be put into our minds, and we become like all the same. We're all the same because we're all influenced by the same music, same TV shows, same whatever it is, and then we're all at the same level, and they can take it as low as they want to take it, So yeah, I don't think that the things that influencing us from our external point of view can be ignored, which is why it's like so many people will watch things like this or listen to people like me, and they'll say, just do the work yourself. You're just supposed to do the work yourself. Like, a lot of people do believe that it's all just a journey of your own. But when there's so many external factors that are not of yourself, not your fault, being just projected into your mind constantly through advertisements, music, whatever it might be, there's no problem or issue with us coming together to help each other through things like this, because they do it on such a wide scale, and there's, like I said, so many external influences. Sometimes it's difficult to completely handle that all on your own. So I agree with you about like where that external influence comes from, but I do think like we really need to come together and work together to, really put an end to it and vibrate to a higher level. As because the thing of a lot of people in this community is like, I want to be done with this. Like, I never want to come back to Earth again, and I just want to go to like, wherever they might be drawn to. Maybe it's a different planet, maybe it's a different realm, maybe they just want to go back to source energy. But Earth still needs us right now. We're not done here. We haven't made it any better. So, well, no, that's a pessimistic thing. Sorry, I shouldn't say things like that pessimistic. I'm not saying we haven't made it any better, but we're not quite there yet, to where we should be.
It's a very confusing picture whether we've made it. There's a lot of, I think, measures where you could say, things really have changed, and we really have made things, not to get into the weeds here. I honestly think we should just finish out this episode with just entity attachments and just call this one entity attachments, because there's just so many directions that we can still go. And do you still have a little bit more time, like 20 minutes to
Yeah, I could do 20 more minutes.
Okay.
It's just it's interesting, isn't it, when you get into a conversation, because we haven't really touched on abductions or anything like that.
Right. We'll do more episodes. How's that sound? We'll
Yeah, that sounds really good. Yeah.
On that, and we'll just make this one entity attachment, since we've already taken up a whole hour basically talking about entity attachment. I'm curious about your thoughts about this, and I don't know if you know anything about this. This is a kind of new sort of thinking that I've come across relating to attachments, but the connection possibly with parasites and attachments. I don't know if you've ever come across anything. I don't know of many people talking about this. I've just kind of almost cobbled this together from my own experiences, and talking to another person that I know from England. I think that there could be a connection between parasites and entity attachments.
But you're talking about actual parasites, like in the
like
gut
in your gut.
system.
Yeah, physical parasites. We know that there's something going on with parasites. We know that there's parasites found in chemtrails. We know that the standard American diet is tailored to basically cause the growth of parasites and negative bacteria. And Miles Johnson, host the Basin Project, I think has had on lots of people, who have talked about some pretty esoteric things regarding parasites and Morgellons and things like that. So I'll just kind of flesh this out a little bit. So you get these parasites in your body, and maybe you're actually kind of they are kind of creating a trauma in a way in your gut in terms of the damage that they do to your gut lining and intestines. You know, they're doing harm. They may be of a low vibration themselves. You know, some of these parasites, they might be the ones possibly coming from chemtrails are maybe, you know, engineered, you know, to be kind of really low densely vibrating things that they may have some extra spiritual component to them as well, some kind of metaphysical. You know, some people, you know, say that Morgellons, you know, like if you have spiritual sight or clairvoyance, you know, that on the other side of that parasite, you know, is some kind of intelligent, you know, being, you know, some kind of alien looking thing, you know, that people have seen. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. And so they create maybe this kind of trauma, you know, in your gut region or in that region of your energy field, you know, and or in the region of, let's say, maybe the chakras as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then this might act as kind of a portal in a way. You know, you have this part of your body and energy body that is vibrating at a low frequency and is dense, kind of thick energy. And this kind of maybe links in some way better than we would otherwise to those lower vibrational realms, you know, where they're stemming from. And maybe that's why, you know, there's so much difficulty that people, you know, weird things, you know, that people encounter when trying to remove parasites, you know, and they hide behind heavy metals. And it seems like these heavy metals that we get into our body also from chemtrails really impede our ability to remove the parasites. And maybe it's, you know, it's all this kind of designed to kind of keep this kind of portal in a way. I kind of like that term, going in your energy field, so that they can stay attached to you more easily than they could otherwise. Do you have any thoughts on this? And could you also tell us, where do attachments generally attach at, as far as on your energy field, with your lower chakras, or is it all across the board, or just
Okay.
take that from
So
wherever?
So first, I would just like to talk a little bit about what you're saying there with the parasite. So, you know, it's linking back to the mind, body, and spirit being connected again, because it is all about. I mean, if you forget about parasites for just one moment, and you just think about, like you're mentioning, the foods, the diets, the chemicals, the chemtrails, everything like that. Even when you take a parasites are like living entities, you know. But even if you take that away, the negative kind of things that we're putting into our body, because that's what's available to us, you know, that already is lowering your vibration already. But then as soon as they can implement something that's actually living, you know, so like a parasite, like Morgellons, like
Stays
you're talking
there, you
about.
know, that isn't passed. You know, that's the thing about parasite. You know, it kind of remains in your gut. You know, rather than, you know,
Yeah,
contrary to
and
food substances.
because it's a living thing. It's they're living, and there's more. Um, it's I don't know how to explain it, but it's more powerful for them as a negative um a thing to use, a negative technology, if you will, because, you know, you can make someone weak. You know, a lot of people are very unfortunately do get attachments when they get ill. You know, they become, you know, because of the link between the mind, body, and spirit, their body becomes weak, and so their energy system becomes weak. Maybe they get drained in certain areas, and then this like opens up a more easy entryway, if you will, for like attachments, just by simply not being very well, eating bad foods. But as soon as there's something, as soon as they can put something in there that's actually living, and like like you're saying, can be very difficult to remove. You know, if you have a very bad diet, and so you get an attachment, and then suddenly you change your diet and you're eating really healthy and you're going for your runs and everything like that, or whatever exercise you choose to do, you could remove that attachment pretty easily. But as soon as you have something in there it's kind of got a mind of its own, if you will, or maybe not a mind of its own, maybe it's being controlled, but that then becomes much more difficult to remove, and that's the whole purpose of it. That's the whole point in the parasites, because you can then create attachment, you can create negative energy. You can create issues that are more difficult for the person to remove.
And do you think that analogy of them almost creating a portal in your energy field somewhere is a useful one, because that's kind of how I almost see it, like we have these different layers of our energy field that reside on different frequencies of reality. Like we're spanning different frequencies, and if they can cause some portion of that to vibrate lower, it's almost hooking up to these lower frequencies, these lower frequency planes. And so it almost kind of is a portal. And do you think also maybe in that sense a kind of entryway, possibly maybe into your energy field, if you've got that lower densely vibrating, like a hole.
I totally agree with that.
That constitute a hole, maybe.
I totally agree. Sorry, I just want to say, like, I totally agree with that. And where you were saying that about, like, where is it linked? Is it in your lower chakras? Can it be in your higher chakras? I do find most commonly solar plexus, sacral, and root, because it's, of course, it's like you're saying. Generally, with like the parasites in the gut system, it can be the solar plexus, passing on negative things through being promiscuous and things like that can affect the sacral. And then you've got the root where maybe that's a little bit more material linked, but they are generally the areas that are mostly targeted. And I feel like the reason, unless someone's like really very gifted naturally, like they come here with their natural like psychic or spiritual gifts very high, then they're probably more likely to be attacked in the higher chakras. But for most people, like average people who maybe are at like certain level of awareness, if you attack those lower chakras, they're never going to even think about these ones. They're going to be so detached from having safety and security, because the root chakras maybe has a portal, maybe it's being drained of energy, like you're saying. The sacral, is affecting any real positive intimate relationships that could lead to something positive, because we have really positive, beautiful lessons of love to learn here that are being attacked when people have attachments in the sacral, and then, or even an attack on the creative energy as well, where they don't, maybe their life mission was to cook, because the sacral is about creation, and whether that is through an intimate sense, like creating an actual life, or whether you're putting your creative energy out there for a purpose to have like a domino effect, a positive influence on people. If you attack that, someone's then not vibrating with their life path, and you're barely going to even think about these higher chakras, like getting into spirituality and things like that, because you're going to be so unbalanced and detached from just the normal things that we need in everyday human life, like with the solar plexus. If you have these parasites or a portal there, you're going to get sick, you're going to get digestive issues, whatever it might be. If we can't do our normal day-to-day things, like maintain relationships, have safety and security and a roof over our heads, and just be well enough to function, we're not even going to think about a third eye or crown chakra, so they don't even need to attack that. Obviously, with some people, they do, but I think that's the reason that they're the main areas.
That's very interesting. So, do you think then that a core part of our methods to deal with entity attachments and influence should involve anti-parasite protocols and, you know, keeping your gut healthy, and there's a lot of maybe physical necessities there, you know, that have to be kind of taken care of and solved.
Yeah, I think that you can't, you know, it's very easy to say, oh, just balance your mind, body, and spirit, eat really healthily, look after your mental health, do your self care, and look after your spiritual health, you know, and maybe meditate or listen to frequencies or get some Reiki, you know, secretfrequencies.com, you know, but it might be very easy to say that, like, you know, balance the mind, body, and spirit, but at the end of the day, it can be very difficult to do. And you know, you're always going to go in this flow of where you're focusing on one area a little bit more than the other because you have to. You know, maybe you're focusing on your physical health more because you're really going through something, or it's very difficult to balance them all. But I do feel that it's very important, and I think that with parasites being one of the main I don't know if I should call it like a technology techniques. Being one of the main techniques used to attack us in the physical sense, having a knock-on effect spiritually as well, and probably mentally as well. Yeah, I do think it should really be one of the things at the forefront, because that's the thing, you know, if something else was being used, I mean, I don't know, you know, we could go on forever and ever about this, because there's definitely also negative influences surrounding mental health. You know, there's a huge thing all over social media trying to make everyone believe they have mental health issues, and that's totally normal, you know. I mean, you could go into that, you know, and that's also a huge issue. That's also a huge issue, because you start to tell yourself, oh yeah, I get that. I get that symptom. I get that. I must be depressed. I must have this. I must have that. Now everybody wants a title of like a mental health problem, and you know, then you're then putting yourself in that box. You're putting yourself in that energy, and you know, that's just another issue that and that's another technique used, and another issue that we have to combat. And but yeah, I'm kind of going off on a tangent, but I do agree with you on the parasite thing. I do think it's a very forefront technique at the moment, I would say.
Yeah. Okay, I know you only have a little bit more time. I wanted to just finish out real quick with methods of removal. What can one do? I mean, we've kind of already touched on, you know, the vibrational component of this, and so obviously that's kind of probably the primary way. That's what I've always felt anyway, you know, as the primary means of not just freeing yourself of anti-attachments, but preventing. I think there's the whole problem with people thinking that, you know, you just got to get them detached. But that's really not any kind of solution, right? Because, you know, if you're just simply, you know, getting them removed and you haven't fixed your energy field, you haven't fixed, you know, your low densely vibrating energy in your gut region or in your lower chakras region, they're just going to reattach, you know, or you're going to just get more. And so, yeah, like the primary thrust should be focused on, I've always thought, raising your vibration and making yourself essentially uninhabitable.
Yes, and you have to think about every single thing again. So I know I keep going back to mind, body, and spirit, but it's not just looking after our physical health and detoxing and making sure any of those kind of, you know, like I was saying before about, you know, you're perfectly fine to indulge in the pleasures of life, you know, these beautiful things that have been created like wine, you know, but you have to really take that in moderation. And I think that, you know, looking after our body is a really important one. And then, sorry, people are looking past. So looking after our body is a really important one, and yeah, you have to keep that up. And then looking after your mind is a really important one. So your self-care practices, you know, some people get like a big push to do a self-care practice, you know, maybe at a new year, you know, or something like that. But it's keeping these things up, and but as well as keeping them up, it's not to be too hard on yourself if you do fall out of alignment a little bit, or if you do kind of slip up or relapse or whatever it might be. You still have to be kind to yourself and just get right back on doing it. So looking after your body, looking after your mental health, looking after your spiritual health as well. So, if meditation works for you, that's great. If utilizing lucid dreaming works for you, maybe it does. Frequencies, mantras, certain yoga poses work for different. Certain mantras and certain yoga poses work for different chakras. They can be used as well. If you're constantly having the solar plexus issues with parasites, and you're removing them, detoxing them, you then have to stay on a pretty good diet. But also you might like to incorporate some positive solar plexus things. So maybe 5 minutes before I go to sleep, I listen to some solar plexus frequency music, or I focus on the area in meditation, or I do a mantra, or whatever it might be. Maybe you symbolically wear yellow or light a yellow candle. It's all about the energy that we're putting out there as well. So we can use elements and colors and things symbolically as well. Everything has a vibration. It might sound silly, but everything does have a vibration, and I think it's just about keeping that up. But the main thing is keeping it up, because a lot of people go through the cycle, like they really want to push themselves, they get motivated, and then they slip back. And it's all just about, if you do slip back, that's okay. Just go get back up there.
Right. Yeah. What about light? Last thing, sunlight. I've always noticed, and I really think this is a thing. Some people that have anti-attachments, and I believe I was like this when I had bad attachments. Not that I'm completely free of attachments entirely nowadays, but you have this kind of tendency with some people, and I think they're people with attachments, to not want, the shades are always closed. They don't like sunlight in their house. They kind of get an ill feeling. I've always felt that that's actually the entity that's uncomfortable with sunlight, and you're maybe picking up on its feelings. Do you think sunlight is a big component of
keeping
this
is a huge this is a huge thing. So as well as working with energy and everything that I would do with people or for people, however you might refer to it, I'm a huge proponent of feng shui, and I believe that the energy around us is just as important. Like the energy in the space around us is just as important as our energetic system. So if you might get a full cleanse, you might feel great. Then you go home to a cluttered house where energy is all stagnant around the place. There's been no cleansing there, or things haven't been set up in a way where the energy can freely flow. And sunlight's a huge, huge thing. So there's actually a post on one of my recent YouTube posts, because I was talking to my friend about this, and I said to her, the one thing I would say is never ever make important decisions inside buildings. Always go out. Have the sun on your skin and the wind in your hair when you're making very important decisions, because you need that natural flow of energy and that natural light. I totally agree with you with that. And one thing I do always put forward to the people I work with is about the sunlight in their space. I really try to encourage people to always have the windows and blinds open. Not windows as in if it's cold, you have to open the window, but the blinds and the curtains, let as much sunlight in as possible into the home as you can. Natural light. If the natural light is coming through enough, like if your window is big enough, don't have the light on for the day, because people talk about false light, but the artificial light we have links into false light a little bit. And this is all part of a psychic development course that I'm doing, where I do go a lot more into this with the light situation. So it's really interesting that you bring that up, because not only is sunlight very important, but there are some issues surrounding false light that's been given to us and put in most of the places that we reside. So there's definitely something going on with that as well. But I can't delve into it right now because I am actually running out of time, unfortunately. It's
Okay.
so interesting that you got into that right at the end there, because this is a really big thing in my course. So yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, I would definitely encourage our viewers to check that out and go to your website and go to your Facebook page. And we should have that linked in the description. If not, I'll make sure that that gets done. And yeah, I would definitely like to have you back for more episodes if you would like to. I think you're just a great, knowledgeable person, good conversation partner, and it's really fun to delve deep into this. This is the first time on the show that we've ever really delved deeply into entity attachments and kind of just focused our attention there. And I think there's merit in just having episodes where you just kind of drill down on one thing, and really kind of explore all the various nuances of it. But yeah, this was a really great episode, and thank you for coming on. And yeah, if you'd like to, I'd like to have you back on.
Okay. Yeah, so I would say, so first I would like to say thank you so much for inviting me. I really have enjoyed talking to you. And it is nice because, like you said at the beginning, to really delve into it. And that's why we spent so much time and not really got to everything we wanted to speak about. But I do think that's good. I think delving more into things, giving more detail, and trying to be as explanatory as possible, because not everybody, we can't assume that everybody knows what we know, so so it is important. I really appreciate you inviting me on. It's been great, and I will just to say that if anyone just wants to find me, my website is secretfrequencies.com/shop, and you can also contact me by email is probably the easiest way. So it's secretfrequencies@outlook.com is the best way to get in touch with me. But you can send me a message through the website as well. And yeah, I do have Facebook. So my YouTube is Secret Frequency Sessions. Maybe that'll be linked, I don't know. And my Facebook is The Secret Frequencies.
Okay, very well. Yeah, I would very much encourage our viewers to check all that stuff out and take advantage of your services. I think you really know your stuff. So but okay, I know you got to go, so I'll let you go. And great episode. I will definitely be in contact with you to schedule some further episodes, maybe in the spring or the summer.
I really look forward to talking to you again. Bye, James. Thank you. Have a wonderful evening. Bye.
Yep, evening here. Yep. Okay. Take care.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you for tuning in with us tonight. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and follow to receive notifications when new content is made available. A Paranormally Beyond Disclosure is looking to talk with ufologists, researchers, investigators, contactees, abductees, channelers, and more for upcoming shows. Or if you have stories, photos, videos, questions, suggestions, or comments, please contact us through Messenger or email us at paranormallypodcast@gmail.com. You can also visit us at paranormallypodcast.com for more content and information, including all our social links. I thank you again for watching or listening, and we hope to see you on the next episode of Paranormally Beyond Disclosure.